Hi, y'all. I'm Stacy, and we are Loving My Veteran. This week, we're going to talk about PTSD from the eyes of the veteran. Um, it's been a project, to say the least. I really want to thank people here at Loving My Veteran who have been so supportive of this project. My veteran in particular, who lives with me every day and lets me bring this into our living room, into our lives. Jeremy, he's doing our dust off series, and throughout the week he'll be posting as well. Um, so we'll have Jeremy on following us shortly. He'll be posting some stuff to our website and to our YouTube channel, as well as to the Facebook page. Usually I'm full of energy and full of excitement, and today it's just about we have to learn to walk in each other's shoes. And so if we sit back and we don't walk in each other's shoes, we don't see things from their perspective, and they don't see things from ours. PTSD is not the normal thing, and we don't always understand it, and we get frustrated and say, "Well, can't you just turn it off, or can't you be there for me?" The reality is they can't. So I just want you to think for a minute, for us, for people, how does it feel when you get in a car wreck? That adrenaline kicks in, your heart rate goes up, your breathing gets excited, even if it's minor. And for those few minutes, you're in a moment of terror or fear. Is everybody in the car okay? What about the people we were involved in the wreck with? It's my car. Is he going to kill me? All of this turmoil builds up. But once that's over, it subsides. Think about the moment when you have kids and all of a sudden they decide to wander off. And for this brief second, you have this fear, right? That your kids are gone and you get this panic mode about you. That happens. We have that. We think about the number of hurricanes that are coming and natural disasters and fires. And my friend Laura Lee, I mean, she's just dealt with the fire being so close to her house that they were worried about the water tower that protected the neighborhood. So, you're on this fight and flight mode all the time during that event. And so she has that going on. You go to sleep in the middle of the night and you're woke up by this horrifically loud thunderstorm. You know that the storm has produced tornadoes in other areas, and now it's on you in the middle of the night. Do you create this sense of panic and this sense of fear? Well, yeah, those are events for us. Your kid gets cut or somebody gets cut, and you see all this blood, and you got to stop it, and they're going to need a few stitches. Does that create panic in us? Absolutely. And according to the statistics, and I will be posting on our website all the links to the statistics and stuff that we have done and where we're getting these numbers from. But according to the American Psychological Association, 70% of all adults experience some form of trauma in their life. Most of them have 1 to 3 occurrences. So most of us, most people, can go on and live a normal existence with 1 to 3 traumas in their life spread out through their lifetime. Where PTSD kicks in is when that trauma becomes more profound, more often. There's just so much behind it, the whole situation. I think back to when my kids were little, and my ex-husband and I were stationed on a Navy base, and we were in California. I'm raised on the East Coast. I understand hurricanes. I know they're coming. I can deal with them. And I will never forget that particular moment. I'm watching 2020. My kids are asleep. My husband at the time was deployed, and we lived on a naval air station. And this horrifically loud noise came, and I'm thinking, oh my God, a plane's crashed on the air station. And I can remember seeing the house kind of go in ripples coming across the room. You could see the water slosh in the fish tank, and then it started shaking back and forth. And at that moment, I realized that I'm in the middle of an earthquake. And prior to us getting there was right before the big earthquake in San Francisco where the Embarcadero crashed and collapsed. I've never been in an earthquake. I'm like freaked out. And I remember picking up the phone and calling my mom. Now, this is 10 o'clock on the West Coast, and my mom lives on the East Coast, so she's sound asleep. I'm waking her up, and she says hello in this groggy voice, and I am screaming and crying. Is another one going to come? Is it going to happen again? And I was in sheer panic for that moment, to the point that he woman went in, and my kids had bunk beds, and they were that heavy crate bunk bed. And I went in the middle of the night and took one bunk bed off the top of the other because I was afraid they were going to collapse on each other. And so from that moment on, the whole rest of the time we lived in California, you felt little tremors, but every time I felt a tremor, that little quick thing of panic came over me. Is this what's going to happen? I think about my friend Ronnie. She actually grew up with my son. A few years ago, Ronnie has a pool, above ground pool. It was fenced in, and her son got in. The gate didn't get closed, and her son got in the pool, and she found him floating face down. When she jumped in the pool to get him, he was lifeless. He wasn't breathing. They called 911. She's doing everything she can. The EMS crew arrives. They do what they have to do. He's now breathing on his own, and they send him to the Children's Hospital for evaluation. And he has no permanent side effects from this event. But as a result, Ronnie took the pool down. And Ronnie, at this point, won't let her kids anywhere near water without a life jacket on. And that is a traumatic event that happened that caused this. So we think about our veterans, and when I started doing some serious research, um, since and early on in the Iraqi war, it was not uncommon for Army troops, for the ground troops, to be deployed for a year. Now they're trying to get it to 9.3 months, but a year. So imagine, if you will, and this is where we have to take ourselves out of where we are. But imagine, if you will, the sights, the sounds, the smell, the feel, the taste. I interviewed a lot of people and talked to a lot of veterans as I was working on this project. And the things that they said, we all have traumatic events in our lives, but their traumatic events during the period of deployment were constant. So you are going into a country that is hostile. There's explosions, so you have this very loud thing going off, even from a distance, right? And you can feel the ground shake, and you can hear the explosion, and then you may still be in the confines of that base area that you're deployed to, that you're sitting in. Then a convoy's gone out, and all of a sudden, somebody that 2 days ago you were having breakfast with has now been blown up in an IED explosion. So that pain is very real. And so every time from that moment on that they hear another explosion, they're thinking in their mind, is this my buddy? Is this somebody else? This could be me. They're over there and they're looking at the pictures of their family from home, and they're thinking, this could be me. Or you're the guy that's over there. You're the one who survives. Your buddy's laying there with no legs. And the blood and the smell of the blood and the smell of the burning vehicle that you're in, and the sound and the sand and the grit. And that is a constant thing that is going off in their mind every single day, every day while they're deployed. Every moment. Is this what I'm going to do? They do a bombing raid because we're going after the bad people, right? And so they bomb an area. And so now they're going in to look for these insurgents that are sitting there, and they're in this space Did they know they created the military, this total devastation, people's homes, their cars, um, bodies, the sights, the sounds, the smells. It was a veteran that went over there and going through the rubble, not a 2-year-old child, no parents, 2-year-old child. This 2-year-old child is crying out, and this is what they have in their head, and it never goes away. You can't unsee something. You can't unsmell something. You can't untaste something. So all this devastation is going on around them, and it is staying in their head. And we did this for peacekeeping. We did this because we were after the bad guy. The baby's family wasn't the bad guy, because that's what they were told to do. So that moment never goes away. That moment when you think you've cleared an area and you make a turn, and the next thing you know, the guy in the front is riddled in bullets and you're the one holding him up. Think about Jeremy, who has shared this story. He shared his story, and he was a jump master. And he wasn't responsible for packing the guy's parachute. He was the jump master. And he told the guy to jump. And the sheep didn't deploy. And so what does he have in his mind? That pure fear of never seeing the sheep deploy. This sound of the guy hitting the ground. The fact that he gets there and the guy is mangled and not going to survive. And he knows that. And the gasping breath of, "Oh, my wife, I love her." You don't think there's guilt? You don't think that every time that Jeremy hears a certain sound, he thinks of that moment? Absolutely, it comes flooding back to him. You got these guys that do advanced stuff, and there's two of them. You know, we think about this platoon of people. Well, sometimes there's 2 or 3 people going out and scouting. They go out, and they're in the sand. It's them, whatever food they brought from them, whatever safety stuff they have for them, whatever ammo they have for them, and there's 2 of them, and their life depends on each other. How do they sleep? Buried in the sand? The one waiting and watching? What happens if the one who's watching ends up dead? What about the guilt if the guy that you're sitting there with ends up dead and you want to wait to take care of him? What happens to that? You know, we sleep in our comfy beds. These guys slept in sand, grit, dirt, rocks. Now, when I go to the beach and I got a little bit of grit up in my bed, I am like freaking out. That's what they had. That feel of the grit was there. You don't take that away. What about walking into the tent, seeing caskets covered in flags? Those caskets hold your buddies. Those caskets hold your brothers and your sisters and moms. Those caskets that are draped in a flag, that is final. That is a moment they will never erase ever from their minds. It won't go away. The anger, the rage, the fear, it never goes away. Ever does it go away. And then we have the whole other set of stuff. And I took some notes over here just because I thought that it was like ridiculous when we start thinking about this. Do you understand that over 8 million people in the United States suffer from PTSD in any one year? 8 million people. Give you a little bit. That is the entire population of either New Jersey or Virginia. So that would be like taking the entire state of Virginia, and every single person in the state of Virginia has PTSD. And these are military numbers only. And these are reported military numbers only. 8 million people suffer from PTSD. Million in any one given year. That's the entire population in New York City. And you think about from just this perspective, and I am not discounting COVID at all and the number of deaths, but you think about how the mayor flipped out and the governor flipped out and the country flipped out because we had X number of people in New York City get COVID and die from it. Well, what if 100% of that city suffered from post-traumatic stress and the fear and the pain and the anger and the sights and the sounds and the smells that don't go away? But we don't find that important enough to deal with. Well, we're going to shut down the entire country. And I'm not disputing that. I think we've done the things. I worked on that. I understand the importance of COVID. But just in that perspective, the entire city of New York City has PTSD if you put them all together. New York City. It's the same thing. Y'all think I'm talking about big cities? If 8 million people is the entire population of LA, Chicago, and Philadelphia combined, those are huge numbers. They're huge. That's the reality of what we're facing. These guys don't choose this. Currently, the average deployment for an army, because they tend to have the longest, is 9.4 months. Prior to 2012, they could be deployed up to 18 months. 18 months of seeing, smelling, feeling, tasting, fearing death, destruction, pain, loss, grief. 18 consistent months, for 9 consistent months, for 6 consistent months. And what happens when they get back from deployment? Most of them are giving them 2 weeks. 2 weeks to decompress from 9 months of living that life every moment. As a paramedic, y'all know I experienced stuff. I had a gun pulled on me, I've been to traumatic events, I've done whatever, but I never had it without a break for 9 consecutive months, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 9 months. Decompressed. I went, the places that we've been, we think about Afghanistan and Iraq. They're on our mind. We talk about them and we think about them all the time because those are just places that we do, right? And places that we know and places that the news carries out for us. You know, we've been in Saudi Arabia. I'm looking at these. We did Operation Provide Comfort, where we defended the Kurdish people. We went to Zaire in the Central African Republic, Sierra Leone, Bosnia, Yugoslavia. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We sent Rangers and Delta forces into a hostile urban area where 2 Blackhawks were shot down, 18 people killed, 73 people wounded, and one of them was captured, and that was less than a 2-month event. Think about, well, they weren't in Iraq or they weren't in Afghanistan. We've been to places like Liberia, Albania, Congo, Thailand, Kenya, Sudan, Kosovo, Nigeria, Yemen, places I've never even heard of. We had an incident with us in China a few years ago, Afghanistan, the Philippines, the Republic of Georgia, Ethiopia. We went into Kashmir, places I still can't even pronounce. Uganda, Jordan, Turkey, There's a country called Chad. It's in Africa. Oh, we've been there. Tripoli. We've sent troops there, dropped them in to into urban areas for humanitarian, where people were killed or captured. This is for humanitarian aid. We don't think about that. We don't think about that constant pain, that constant fear, that constant sound. This is the reality of what so many of our servicemen and women are dealing with every single day. They've watched countries implode from the inside out. We've all talked about it. I've read it, I've heard it, I've talked to spouses that say, right now, my veteran's in the worst spot I can ever remember. Yeah, they are. Because what's happening today is what we did. They saw firsthand what their buddies died to protect. Their buddies can't deal with when they come home. You think you protected them on the battlefield. And then they get home and they can't save their buddy, save their brother. They can't save their sister. You don't think that's something that plays out in their mind every moment of every day? Why don't they sleep at night? Because in the real world, in that world, somebody always had to be awake to protect the ones that were sleeping. Why don't they sleep at night? He doesn't sleep at night because I'm asleep. Because he has to protect me. What about the flashback? You don't determine when that memory is going to come in. I know for me, and this is totally irrelevant, after my dad died, there were times I could just be somewhere and smell his cologne, just randomly. We wasn't even an event, anything that would even remotely remind me of my father. I could smell his cologne in a moment. What do you think they go? What do you think is in their mind? Scream, sound, grit, smell. I heard a song the other day by Soldier Heart. He's amazing, amazing guy. And the song literally said, I can taste the gunpowder from my rifle. I can taste the gunpowder from my rifle. I know for me as a paramedic, when I went to a trauma, a bad trauma, you smell blood. That's a smell you never forget. It doesn't smell like anything else. But imagine being the blood of your brother, your sister, and more than one person. And there's this pool, and that's a smell they never forget. That's a smell that never goes away. So why we don't understand and why we don't grasp it and why we can sit here and say, I don't understand why they can't turn it off. Can you turn off your memory? Good or bad, can you turn them off? Do those memories come back? For Ronnie, every summer when her kids are by a pool, that memory comes back. That memory of seeing her child float in that pool, even though he survived, that moment comes back every summer and every time that baby is born. So if that one event triggers that memory in Ronnie, what do you think every sound and sight and smell and noise and feeling and everything creates to bring back an event in our we haven't lived. And by the grace of God, and because of all these brave men and women who served and protected our country, I don't I don't have to have that nightmare because of you don't have to live that nightmare because of them. That is a battle they chose. That is the baggage that they chose to pick. That is what they knew. Most of them knew that it was they were going there. They knew what was going to happen. What they didn't know is that they couldn't leave it. They got it. They didn't know that they couldn't do this and leave it there. They didn't know that that smell and that sight and that sound and that fear and that feeling, they didn't know that it couldn't be left there. So what I have to say is this: in their shoes. May you never fear the terror that they feel. Walk a minute in their shoes. We have no idea what they've been through. And by the grace of God, we never. And I want to use this moment, this personal moment, to tell my veteran, I love you. Everything you've been through, I love you. And I will be here and I'm going to be beside you every step of every way, every time you have a moment or an event or a date. I'm not going anywhere. And to the rest of you out there and to the other veterans out there, we're not going because to us, you're not a number. You're not a statistic. You're not one of 8 million. You have a name and you matter. You matter to us. You matter to this country, whether they want to act like it or not. You matter. And we will always be here for you. So when you get to that point that you just can't do it anymore, get help. Reach out. That's what we're here. When we created Loving My Veteran, we wanted to be different. We wanted to be real. And we wanted to be raw. And we wanted to be just a bunch of people who loved other veterans. Just a bunch of people who loved other spouses, who wanted to help and empower. So what we say may not be posh and polished, but it's heartfelt. We're always here. Someone is always here for you. And you are never alone in this battle. We are part of a community who loves you and who embraces you. And Jeremy, I couldn't do this without you and opening up. And by the pain you went through, and so many other veterans who have shared their story went through, you may never be able to erase. But by opening up and sharing your pain, you're going to make it so it makes a difference in other people's. That's what we need. We will get this posted to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe there. There'll be a lot more stuff on there. It's Loving My Veteran. We'll get it on the website today. There are some um, research that I've done in those documents. They will be on the resource page of our website today at www.lovingmyveteran.com. Anybody who has asked to join the private group, we're having issues allowing people in. We can't see who's done it. So please message us on this page and we can get you in. Um, our October 1st date is clicking off quickly, so we may end up moving the platform to our website as well. But we love you. Tomorrow, Jeremy's blog will be on. And hopefully we'll get a live from him at some point today, a video from him at some point today. Remember, you're not a name, you're a number. You matter to us. Thank you. God bless and have a great day.